All power to the people. Thank you very much. Firstly, comrades and ladies and gentlemen, for coming over to this press conference. I'm sorry that everything I seem to wear is a little bit bigger than me, and there's been lots of political weight limiting exercise. This is the t-shirt of my union, the union that brought me into the public arena from my trade union background point of view. This is where I cut my teeth as a young activist and shop steward in the Federation, the NUM. Yesterday, the 15th of August 2013, COSATU's national office bearers held a historic press conference to announce that I have been placed on special leave pending an investigation and disciplinary action. Today, I'm releasing the letter my lawyers wrote to COSATU for the attention of the presiding officer of the Central Executive Committee, held on the 14th of August 2013. The lawyers were requesting that the meeting be either cancelled or postponed because they believed that a number of the people who were to take a decision were prejudiced and have long been pushing that I be removed from my position. Let me repeat that. Today, I am releasing the letter my lawyers wrote to COSATU for the attention of the presiding officer of the Special Central Executive Committee held on the 14th of August 2013. The lawyers were requesting that the meeting be either cancelled and or postponed because they believed that a number of the people who were to take the decision were prejudiced and have long been pushing that I be removed from my position. See the letter from my lawyers with attachments which we will circulate after this statement. The national office bearers of COSATU, in their own wisdom, decided that the matters raised in this letter were not relevant to the discussions of the Special Central Executive Committee. I disagreed with this decision and placed it on record that there was a strong connection between the issues raised in the letter and the matter on the agenda, in that if others have been mobilized to remove me, they will stop at nothing, including using any incident to achieve their goals. I believe this is exactly what happened in the meeting. The NOBs decided that they would propose to the meeting an approach that will say the matter for which the meeting has been convened and the content of my letter be handled through a President's and General Secretary's forum outside the Special Central Executive Committee meeting, with a view of tabling the recommendations on how these matters could be handled and provided to the affiliates in the next COSATU Central Executive Committee meeting scheduled for the 16th to the 18th of September this year. It is now history that the national office bearers did not push for this approach in the meeting. No informed member of COSATU or member of society can claim to be unaware of the fact that for more than a year now, some faceless and at times identified leaders of certain COSATU affiliated unions have openly and in public launched a systematic campaign aimed at removing me at the COSATU's 11th National Congress, and when that failed, at the February and May 2013 Central Executive Committee meetings. One of the intentions of the so-called intelligence report, which we are distributing to members of the press today, is clear: to divide COSATU. It forms part of a campaign currently underway to weaken and destroy a COSATU that many have come to appreciate as an independent, fearless spokesperson of the interest of the most downtrodden in our country and in the world. A true and reliable friend of the most marginalized all over the world, that holds the moral compass of our young democracy. It is a campaign to reduce COSATU into a labor desk of the governing party. It is a campaign to reduce COSATU into a labor desk of the governing party, where leaders whose ambitions are to serve in parliament and cabinet will be able to advance their individual personal careers. Quite clearly, those who have formed long queues in the corruption-feeding trough fair and independent organization. And I believe they have designed schemes to divide and destroy COSATU, no matter the consequences to workers' interest and South Africa as a whole. As you will see in the so-called intelligence report, the aim is not only to smear and destroy me as an individual, but also to discredit and destroy a number of other prominent South Africans, such as Dr. Sipale, Judge Dikgang Moseneke, Cyril Ramaphosa, Ivan Jim, and others. This so-called intelligence report also makes out that the Marikana massacre, which we are marking its first anniversary today, the service delivery protests, and the xenophobic attacks in our country were not genuine responses by the poor to the quality or to the squalid living and working conditions, but form part of a grand conspiracy to overthrow a democratically elected state, led by the liberation movement as well as other governments in the African continent. This report aims to create paranoia in order to justify its true and sinister aims, politically annihilating those who are perceived as opponents and who dare to speak truth to power. My lawyers are writing a letter to the Minister of Intelligence, Siyabonga Twele, to check if this report is a product of any of the state organs. We will also write a letter to the Inspector General, who is the intelligence ombudsman, to ask him to investigate if state institutions have not been abused to divide workers' organizations and smear individuals. I have no doubt in my mind that this report has been widely circulated among certain leaders in the organization and has changed the readers' perspectives about me. Individuals who only yesterday would have laid their lives on the line in my defense and in the defense of the organization have changed in the recent past and today are my worst political enemies. Throughout my life, I formed part of the collective that fought against the abuse of state institutions for narrow factional activities in our organizations. The public will recall that COSATU, our icon and father, Comrade Nelson Mandela, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and others took a strong stance against misinformation that Cyril Ramaphosa, Tokyo Sipale, and Matthew Posa were plotting to stage a coup d'etat. We took the same stance when some in the intelligence community produced a browse mole report, the aim of which was to smear the current president of the ANC, Comrade Jacob Zuma, whilst he was still the deputy president. Today, a report which has all the hallmarks of being the work of the rogue elements in the intelligence community, who are in the employ of factionalists within our organization, produce a complete and a total fabrication by, amongst other things, constructing transcripts of telephone discussions and meetings that never took place, with the purpose of smearing me and getting me removed as the General Secretary. The Federation of Workers is today in total turmoil, divided and totally paralyzed. COSATU, thanks to these schemes to divide it, is totally unable to take forward its Congress or workers' decision to engineer a lunar moment of our own, or to take forward the resolution to engineer the second phase of transition for a radical economic transformation, which will include fighting for the banning of the which will fight for the banning of the labor brokers, fighting for a 40-hour working week, fighting for a national minimum wage, and for policies aimed at addressing the record high levels of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities, or fighting corruption that has reached catastrophic levels. As we move towards celebrating the 20th anniversary of our hard-earned democracy, it is extremely concerning that the abuse of state institutions to drive internal factional wars and destroy individuals continues unabated. Some of us put our lives on the line and fought hard to end such abuses. We naively thought this phenomenon was buried in the Polokwane Conference of the ANC held in December 2007. We were wrong. At this moment, I wish to recall statements made by the icon of the American civil rights movement, who had this to say about moments like this, and I quote, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." Martin Luther King, the Jr. The same worldwide respected icon of the Black American struggles for justice had this to say, and I quote, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. The true neighbor will risk his position, his prestige, and even his life for the welfare of others." End of quote. I have instructed my lawyers to challenge the decision to put me on leave of special absence pending investigation and or possible disciplinary action for, amongst other things, the following reasons. One, the president of COSATU prejudiced himself because he circulated the so-called intelligence report whose intention is to smear and destroy my person. Two, the president of COSATU chaired the meeting even though he publicly found me guilty of bringing the federation in disrepute. Three, a number of affiliates leaders prejudiced themselves in that they clearly have been influenced by the so-called intelligence report circulated by the president. We will show in the courts that the people who share the belief that I am an agent of American imperialism are not limited to those highlighted in the lawyer's letter. Four, the decision to suspend in order to launch an investigation is unfair and invalid and has trampled on my rights as an individual. I also believe that the other staff members' rights have been trampled and that she has been caught in a crossfire. What will be investigated when I have already admitted that I have erred and apologized dozens of times? COSATU in the past had no qualms in accepting a public apology of the then Deputy President in court. Today, the same COSATU won't forgive its own product who has broken no law or any of the COSATU policies. I was not given an opportunity, that's the fifth reason. I was not given an opportunity to motivate why I should not be put on special leave. In a desperate cover-up to close this hole, only yesterday at the meeting with the leaders mandated to communicate the decision of the Special Central Executive Committee to me, the COSATU president asked me to state why I should not be put on special leave. I responded to tell him that the question has become rhetorical, in that even if I were to convince them that the CC was wrong, they were not in a position to change a decision taken the previous day. However, I went on to express my feeling why the suspension was an act of vengeance to conclude attempts to remove me, which have failed on previous occasions, now using this saga that I have acknowledged and apologized for. I believe that a grave injustice is being visited on me. I believe that my suspension will be proven to be both procedurally and substantially unfair. The laws of our country, including the right to be treated fairly, have been trampled upon by the very same people who are mandated to defend rights of workers and all South Africans, including myself. I believe that South Africans, workers and the poor, including COSATU members in particular, must be aware of these injustices. It is up to them to decide whether or not to bury their heads in the sand because they are still safe in their corners. I believe that the next person is to be politically persecuted is not going to be only Ivan Jim and those other leaders of the unions that are defending my rights, but all those other South Africans that are listed in the so-called intelligence report. I recall this saying, which serves as a lesson for all today. And I quote, "First, they came for communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." Thank you very much. Now I'm going to ask that comrade in his individual capacity as my comrade and friend to help circulate the letters and the annexures that I'm referring to in the statement, as well as the statement that I've just read. Start with the media, prioritize the media, and the comrades always have their own way of finding these things. My other comrade can circulate this box in your individual capacity as my friend. I'll take questions, but I prefer that I have lesser and lesser questions for you to ask because you don't have the information yet. Let me give you the first opportunity.
Mr. Vavi from Bloomberg. I mean, you mentioned in your speech, Conservative President we just come from a North press conference where they said they lost faith in his leadership. Would you share that view? Sure. And beyond that, you talk of a conspiracy to divide and weaken COSATU. Who's involved in this? Who's behind this beyond people within COSATU itself?
Even at this point, I'm not willing to say what you're asking me to say in relation to the COSATU president. So I will skip that question. Secondly, in the statement itself, I do point out who are the forces behind this agenda. It is those that are standing in the long queue in the feeding corruption or in the corruption feeding town. That's what I have said. Follow my leader? Can we have a little bit of quiet distribution? This document was quietly distributed over a long period of time.
Apparently, one of the conditions of your station leave was that you will not use COSATU platforms to speak. I'm not sure because I see union people here. I'm not worried that you might be accused of being in violation of the terms.
This is a Parktonian hotel paid for by dear friends. And these are my dear friends and comrades. I'm not using any COSATU platform. I'm here in my personal capacity as the son of Mazenjani, my father and mother, and who is being persecuted by the forces who seek to divide the organization I've spent all of its life defending and building. My sister from the business day.
From the business day. GS, I just think the situation seems untenable for you. Why would you fight your suspension in court? It sounds as if you're taking a legal route against it. When it is clear that your comrades and your colleagues in COSATU have made up their minds or their attitudes have hardened against you, how do you think COSATU can move forward after this if you do return to the Federation?
If I were to, as you seem to suggest, resign at this moment and hand over victory to the forces that are standing in the long queue of corruption and feeding clout, then I will be doing a great injustice to COSATU members who only about a year or less than a year ago stood in firm defense of myself as the General Secretary in the 11th National Congress.
From the Sunday Times. Just two things. Since you are challenging the decision by the CEC, will you avail yourself for the disciplinary hearing? And secondly, I ask this to Brusa. With regards to what happened, are you saying then that COSATU shouldn't have sanctioned you at all, or what sanction do you think would have been appropriate for you, following your apology when you had been?
The first question being?
First question is, are you going to avail yourself for
the... my intention has always been to play the game by its rules. If the Federation decides that I must be disciplined, my intention would have always been that I must avail myself for those processes. But it now depends on the legal advice of the lawyers who are saying that we must take this matter both to the CCMA and to the Labour Court on an emergency basis.
Gentleman from your newspaper, you recently expressed concern about your personal safety. Do you think those concerns, the reason for those concerns, are related to this conspiracy? This is the first question. Secondly, I assume that when you were concerned about your personal safety, COSATU took measures to protect you. Now that you are not, that you have been put on special leave and probably going to lose your position, in the next month. Is there someone who can take care of your personal safety? How are you taking? I'm not asking what your personal safety measures are. I'm asking whether it's been taken care of.
The issue of my personal security has been in the media for far too long. I explained again in the recent past that it was around 2005, 2006, and 2007 when I was being followed by cars with wrong registration numbers, when dead dogs and cats were being thrown in my yard, when cars with wrong or bearing wrong registration numbers will come to my home to search out for me, and luckily in all those occasions I would not be at home, when all manner of other threats were being issued. And I had explained that in the recent past that died down between 2008-9, but in June of 2010 I received another death threat which was intimating that I will die the same way as Comrade Sifularo, who was the MEC in the Northwest, have died, or through a car accident, meaning that whoever who had intimate knowledge that there was rumors circulating that the accident in which he died was engineered would have then used that information to try and intimidate me. I had explained that on that occasion, I reported the threat to both the Minister of Safety and Security as well as the then Commissioner of Police, who took the note to the police laboratory in order to check if it was not going to be tracked in terms of its origins. It's now the 16th of August, 2013. I have not been given a feedback as to what happened to those investigations. Last year, a week after the COSATU Congress, where there was an attempt by the leaders who we now all know to try and get me not re-elected. A week thereafter, I got visited or called back from my short holiday to come and hold a meeting with the current acting head of crime and intelligence, General Ngcobo, who told me of a plot to poison me and or to get me killed, and who made statements that one of my bodyguards was being recruited to carry out and or to track and report my whereabouts, and that the people that I work with in the NGOs and civil society formations are being recruited and or have been recruited already to poison and or to get me killed. This was said that this is being done on behalf of the Iranian intelligence operating in South Africa. That was in September 2013. 2012, sorry. It was in September 2012. It is only recently, when the matter came out in the public, that General Ngcobo contacted me to say he wants to give me a feedback, literally last month. All along, he had found no necessity, no reason to contact me and to give me a feedback as to who amongst the bodyguards has been recruited, who amongst the civil society organizations have been recruited by the Iranians. And frankly, from where I stand, I smell a rat. In particular, when you're going to be reading that report, that I suspect there was no Iranian intelligence in the first place. In fact, that's my gut feeling from where I stand. That's why I'm not interested in that report anymore. They can carry on, kill, poison, do all of the things, but there are no Iranians that are out for my life from where I stand now. The people who are out for my life are those that have compiled that report and the people that they are working with.
SABC Television News. Many have said as a principal cadre and leader, you should have resigned on your own accord because you did admit that you have erred. Also, just one last thing, I'd like to know if you're continuing with the case against the lady. You mentioned that you feel her rights were trampled upon as well. Are you continuing with the extortion case against her?
These people who are really championing this thing that I'm a principled cadre and therefore I should have resigned for having an extramarital affair and or having a relationship with a staff member. In my view, I'm using that in order to achieve the first purpose that I articulate in the statement. I was, yesterday I was making a joke with someone, by the way, on that issue. And I was saying that if Jesus were to come back to South Africa today and was to repeat the statement he made at the time when a lady was brought to him, supposedly by people who had taken a serious exception that he had had or she had an extramarital affair. And when Jesus said, "Let those who have no sins be the first to cast the stone," and I believe that if Jesus was to come back now and make the same statement in my case, he will be surprised about the people who have worse sins. But who, if he makes that statement, if he were to make that statement, will without winking continue throwing the stones. This is what exactly have happened to our moral fabric in society. Secondly, about the lady, I must confess that I'm seriously in thoughts about the issue of laying charges. A number of people have come to me to say, I must stop that now that she has withdrawn the case. I have two dilemmas about that. And these people include people I respect, which include Archbishop Makhoba. I have two dilemmas. I don't want to send a signal to anyone that the reason why I took the matter to the police is because I was trying to intimidate her into silence. Yeah. Secondly, I do somehow feel that the lady got herself to be used in the manner that she herself suggests in the SMSs she sent to me. And that it is up to her to reveal the forces that she's referring to in those SMSs, who are behind her putting the grievance and or who then took that grievance to the public arena in order to run a media trial that was hopefully to find me guilty of rape that I did not commit and all of that. And this is where I am now. I am facing no charges in any police. No case has been opened against me, either of sexual harassment and or of rape. 2, the case of sexual harassment and rape as taken up through the COSATU internal processes and then leaked into the newspapers with the intention to humiliate and embarrass me has been withdrawn. So I face no such allegations as I stand where I am now. Thirdly, I have broken no law and I have broken no COSATU policy on any matter in relation to the issue of a relationship. There is no such a policy in COSATU that governs who should have a relationship with whom. I have, however, acknowledged that it was inappropriate, and it is inappropriate because it can always be interpreted that there will be power relations issues in all cases where a leader embarks or involves himself in intimate relationship with the staff, and that's what I have apologized for over and over again. Those who are asking me to apologize must ask others guilty for worse crimes than the mistake I have committed to apologize, and let's see whether they are really acting on principle themselves.
Hi, Mr. Vavi, this is Zuki from Business Day TV. I just want to find out if you are indeed expelled from COSATU, whether you're going to fight for suspension, will you go the Julius Malema route and form your own political party or your own trade union, especially given that it appears the very same political enemies that you speak of are within the organizations that you have defended for a good long time? And second question is, do you agree with the Musa that it should perhaps be the workers or COSATU members that decide on your fate? Thanks.
When you read the report, others shall forfeit. Construct a discussion that never happened between me and two gentlemen that I've never heard of before I read this thing, where a scene is being constructed that they are asking me to jump now to create my own political party. So when you ask me that question, when I'm jumping, all I can remember is that there's a serious effort here to construct an image of me wanting to create my own political parties over a meeting which I'm going to challenge the minister and or whoever who will own up to these documents to produce the record. Surely you can't just go so desperately and produce transcripts of meetings that never took place. Surely this is not all. And the second element of the question was,
do you agree with Musa that it should be the workers who decide what happens to you?
I agree. Workers will decide, and that's why, by the way, uncharacteristically of me, when this thing got blocked in COSATU, I felt I have no more option but to put it on the public space. I will not allow me to be subjected to that type of a kangaroo court, to be hanged up in secret, smoke-filled dark rooms by my enemies, and when I know that I keep quiet, so that later when it is too late for South Africa, I then say that I knew all along that these things are happening. COSATU members will see now the real engineering of this suspension as being part of the broader plan to deal not only with me, to deal with almost every person regarded as a threat somewhere by those in that queue, in the corruption feeding cloud. That's what is happening here. And South Africa better wake up now before you can no longer raise your own fingers because it will be broken. How many times have I said that in my previous public utterances? I can't be here forever. I am planning to take a leave right now and try to put my family together, my kids, and everybody in a destination that I will not reveal. I think I deserve some break owing to what I have to go through in the past month or so. Madu?
Yeah, and I just wanted to check, when did you become aware that the document was distributed by a school?
I'm not going to respond to that one.
Okay, but I was also...
Because you're going to have to ask me who gave it to me. How did it find its way?
No,
I found it.
I was going to say, have you engaged?
I presented the whole thing in the NOAs on Wednesday morning. He is on record denying that he circulated it, but not having or showing it to other people. That's what he said in the meeting.
So in conclusion, I was saying, I mean, after that...
I'm rushing you up so that you can allow me to go.
Yeah. I mean, this week, NUMSA has come out to say that, to describe him as a functionary. So my question is that after you became...
A very good afternoon to you and welcome to SABC News. Well, that's COSATU Secretary General Zwelinzima Vavi there giving his side of the story as to his suspension. Now, we will be crossing back to that live broadcast in Braamfontein. We'll be back with PM News shortly after his speech.
I just want to find out, it seems like every time, allegations about, serious indiscretions of, it seems like allegations of serious indiscretions about other individuals always come out when, a leader is in trouble. I don't understand why is it that it comes out this way, and secondly, it seems like the decision has been taken, by the majority of those who attended the CEC. Now, either way, if people want to be at the trough of corruption, as you put it, they'll be there.
What are you trying to say?
Why actually go this far to actually challenge that?
I must not challenge injustices.
I'm actually talking about the central, democratic centralism that you speak to as well.
Are you suggesting that I must not put these issues to the public, even when I know about their existence? I must, like a sheep, quietly go into the slag barn and submit myself to be held by people who have political agendas, when I know that the issue is not the indiscretion that I have apologized for, that the issue is about the political agenda that I am now pointing out. Would you have dismissed someone for having an extramarital affair in your life? Would you dismiss someone who have made a mistake of having a relationship between consenting adults on the basis that the other one was a boss and the other one was a staff member? Does that warrant a suspension when somebody is on record agreeing that that is wrong and apologizing over, including in the meeting itself? What are we talking about? Can we weigh things here? Can we put everything in the scale of justice and say all that we know have happened in the past is weighing much more lesser and lighter to what the mistake I've committed today? Can we make that conclusion? I don't think so. Any person, in fact, people will realize very, 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 very soon, if these people succeed, that that scale is a scale between a necessary fight to address the 36.8% of unemployment rate in South Africa, to address the poverty of South African workers, who 44% of them today are living on 10 rands a day. And the fact that we have become #1 in the world and that we are seeing and finding no solution to that triple challenge. And that COSATU now is being held, both its hands and every limb, so that it cannot engineer a direction opposite to that situation. When people realize that on the other scale, you have a country whose future is being threatened away by corrupt individuals who are looting the country left, right, and center, and who wants their actions protected through blue, red, or black, every means possible, versus having an individual who have championed those values but who committed a mistake. Put those things in the scale and tell me that I must resign at a particular point. And see whether you're not committing the greatest injustice, not only in my individual rights, but to this workers' organization as well. Last questions. Last questions.
From City Press. You said that you, or that I presume the organization had hoped that rogue intelligence reports like the ones you distributed to us had come to an end in 2007 after Polokwane. Do you regret the decisions you've made in the run up to Polokwane? Do you regret that?
Karen, you want me to make a key statement of headlines. All I'm saying is this, that when I formed, in fact, when I put my entire career and life and everything on the line to mobilize workers and society for the Polokwane breakthrough, there were many things that I believed had gone wrong. One of them was that a minister of police went on a television live to wrongly accuse his own comrades of plotting to stage a coup against a sitting government and president in the form of Cyril, Matthew, and Toko. I, together with the collective, felt that this was a great injustice, and it formed part of our belief that state institutions were being employed to discredit individuals and to deal with them politically in order to silence them for narrow internal organizational purposes. When the Browse Moon report came out, remember it was sent to me, I released it in public to say you can't do this to other individuals. When you have an allegation against anyone which you believe that that person has broken the law, you don't circulate Browse Moon reports and all these things. You gather your intelligence and present your evidence in the courts of law for those individuals to be given an opportunity to defend themselves. I've spent 35 years of my life in this struggle so that we can achieve a South Africa where individuals will be treated in that fashion. Not stuff like this combined in dark corners and then a campaign get run to deal with individuals, not in the courts. Every allegation that is there, because what that thing says is that I am organizing all the protest actions of service delivery. It's me plotting against the government in order to stage a coup d'etat. Or the xenophobic violence, I engineered it. The establishment of Akhan, I was in the advisory committee. And that now I am establishing a political party. All manner of conspiracy theory. And as you will see from the lawyer's letter, It is not just that is saying so. Read some other aspects that I have produced of statements made by other COSATU leaders. It's exactly because they would have read that stuff. That's why they have come to the conclusion that I must be destroyed, and that every step of the way must be developed to deal with the individual who is in the employ of the American imperialism, to dethrone not only an elected government in South Africa, but to overthrow all governments in the African continent that are led by the liberation movements. This is what is contained here. Surely you don't allow people to be persecuted in that fashion. And this is what I'm taking a great exception to. Whether 2007 was right or wrong is neither here or there. The issue is that today, in 2013, these activities are continuing. Today, we can't have any discussions on our phone because there's paranoia amongst all of us that our phones are being tapped. What type of a democracy is that? This is not what we made our lives for. This is not what Chris Hani died for. This is not what Solomon Mahlangu said those things and Vusile Mini said those things about. Thank you very much, comrades. I have to go.